Hi, everybody. Over the course of the past week, we have been talking about Boros Energy and Modern. We've talked about the deck, the card choices in the deck, the overall strategy of the deck, how to play the deck, how to sideboard with the deck against the top 10 most popular decks in Modern, flex slots and different builds of the deck, tips and tricks, and why you should play Boros Energy. So I wanted to combine all those things into one giant, comprehensive deep dive. Enjoy. Boros Energy, over the course of the past few months, has been going down in price. It actually costs around $300 less than it did just a few months ago, though still one of the more expensive decks in the format, costing a little over $800 on average. And what makes Boros pretty attractive is that it's frankly kind of broken. It survived multiple bans and it just remains tier 1 in Modern because what it's doing is just so powerful. In fact, it was one of the only decks that could keep up with Breach, kinda, when Breach was insane. It has white aggressive nut hands in Guide of Souls and Ocelot Pride, some cool combos, and just like an insane amount of damage in one turn that you can get off Goblin Bombardment and a Johnny, and can play the super long game with Seasoned Pyromancer, Fable the Mirror Breaker, and Showdown of the Scalds. Depending on what that specific game needs, Red-White Energy can do it. Even more, it basically has no bad matchups. I would say Eldrazi is probably leaning a little bit bad, but there's no other bad matchups. At worst, it's 50-50, and it has some actual good matchups, like Dimir Oculus, Dimir Frog, Esper Oculus, Mill, and Burn. So if you're thinking about playing Red-White Energy, you totally should. It's on my list for playing this RCQ season. So this is Red-White Energy in Modern. If you've played any Modern over the course of the past year, you know Red-White Energy. Red-White Energy is just absolutely absurd. But let's just kind of go across the board by mana cost or whatever. As far as the lands go, there's not a lot of interesting stuff going on. We're playing a large amount of fetch lands, basically to fuel Flage, because ending the game with Flage is a very common end game with this deck. And we want as many cards in the graveyard as possible in order to fuel that Flage and be able to reliably escape it from the graveyard. In addition to that, because we're playing so many fetch lands, we're playing 3 Sacred Foundry, so we always have good mana. Double red is important, but also white in the early turns is really important. And we're playing 2 Elegant Parlor, the Surveil lands. Enters tapped, but it's just being able to use all of our fetch lands as we play them super consistently and be able to grab those Surveil lands and get some value out of not using our mana is pretty powerful. In addition, we're playing 3 Arena of Glory. Arena of Glory enters tapped unless you control a mountain. It's very easy for this deck to have a mountain. It adds a red, and you can pay a red, tap it, and exert it, which means the land doesn't untap the next turn. And add 2 red if that mana is spent on a creature spell against haste until end of turn. So this is decent, alongside Ragavan or maybe a Johnny or Seasoned Pyromancer or whatever. But the real reason we're playing the Arena of Glory is that Flage thing that I mentioned, is that if you use the double red on escaping Flage from the graveyard, then it gets its enter the battlefield ability and its attack ability, and obviously deals combat damage as well. Speaking of, I kind of want to skip ahead to Flage because a lot of the lands that we're playing are because of Flage. Flage is a 3 mana 6/6. When it enters, sacrifice it unless it escaped, and when it enters or attacks, it deals 3 damage to any target, and you gain 3 life. And you can escape it by paying 4 mana and exiling 5 other cards from your graveyard. So again, if we Arena of Glory this, as we escape it, it doesn't work if you cast it from your hand because it'll be sacrificed anyway, even if it enters with haste. But if we Arena of Glory this, and then we can Lightning Helix when it enters, attack Lightning Helix something, so we can get blockers out of the way or just go face, and then it deals 6 combat damage. It's just disgusting. It's just absolutely disgusting, and very often that can totally end games, which is what makes this deck so hard to play against, because you kind of have to manage the Red-White Energy's graveyard, even though they're not a graveyard deck, just so you don't die to a Flage. That being said, it has some nut hands in Guide of Souls and Ocelot Pride. Guide of Souls is a 1 mana 1/2. When another creature you control enters, you gain 1 life and get an energy. And whenever you attack, you may pay 3 energy. When you do, put 2 +1/+1 counters and a flying counter on target attacking creature. It becomes an angel in addition to its other types. The angel thing doesn't really matter in this deck, but gaining incidental life is excellent. Giving yourself a bunch of energy for Static Prism is excellent. And Galvanic Discharge, being able to kill bigger things. And being able to become even more aggressive when you play a bunch of creatures, get a bunch of energy and whatnot. This combos directly with Ocelot Pride. Ocelot Pride is a 1-mana 1/1 with the first strike lifelink, has Ascend, and at the beginning of your end step, if you gain life this turn, create a 1/1 white cat creature token. Then if you have the City's Blessing, for each token you control that enter this turn, create a token that's a copy of it. Which means if you have Guided Souls in the battlefield, play an Ocelot Pride, even though you haven't attacked with it, which is kind of what Ocelot Pride wants to do, you still get that 1/1 cat on end step, which triggers Guided Souls again to get another life and another energy. And you see how this can snowball very, very quickly, even if your opponent has blockers. Because then, let's pretend you can attack or whatever, because they have a blocker. Next turn, I'm going to play like an Ajani or a Ragavan. That's my third energy. Then we attack with anything. It doesn't even need to be Ocelot Pride, because we've already gained life from the Guided Souls trigger. We get even more creatures on end step, get even more energy. Eventually, we're going to get the City's Blessing and double our tokens at the end of every turn. It's just disgusting. Static Prism's a decent removal spell. It's a 1-mana enchantment. When this enchantment enters, exile target non-land permanent on opponent controls until this enchantment leaves the battlefield. You get 2 energy counters. At the beginning of your first main phase, sacrifice this enchantment unless you play an energy. So this can be kind of tough, especially if we have to play it in the early turns, but it's an unconditional removal that we just have to pay an energy every single turn for. So you have to use these sparingly because they are pretty premium and you need to make sure you win the game before you run out of energy. We're playing 4 Galvanic Discharge. Galvanic Discharge is a 1-mana instant. Choose target creature, a planeswalker. You get 3 energy. Then you may pay any amount of energy. Galvanic Discharge deals that much damage to that permanent. This is just like, frankly, a better Lightning Bolt, but it can't go face. Being able to like use the energy you get from Guided Souls or even Static Prism or earlier Galvanic Discharges to be able to kill even larger creatures than Lightning Bolt can. We're playing 3 Ragavan Nimble Pilfer. It's a 1-mana 2/1. Whenever Ragavan deals damage, or combat damage, to a player, create a treasure token and exile the top card of that player's library. Until end of turn, you may cast that card, and it has dash for 2 mana, which means you can cast it for 2 mana. It has haste, but you return it to your hand at the beginning of the end step. So this allows you to get a mana advantage. It's a must answer because you can also get card advantages from your opponent. 99% of decks that you can cast beneficial stuff from your opponent off of Ragavan. But getting that mana advantage is huge as well. So providing that must answer in Ragavan is just insane. We're playing 4 Ajani Nakatl Pariah. It's a 2-mana 1/2. When Ajani enters, create a 2/1 white cat warrior creature token. And whenever one or more other cats you control die, you may exile Ajani, then return him to the battlefield transformed under his owner's control. So the cats include the thing Ajani makes, Ocelot Pride, and the things Ocelot Pride make. So any of those things die. So when we have an Ajani out, we can actually attack really liberally if we're willing to play into a removal spell. It flips into a Planeswalker, Ajani Nakatl Avenger, which is an incredible Planeswalker that's effectively 2 mana. Its +2 is put a +1/+1 counter on each cat you control, which can be pretty powerful. You sometimes use that. 0, which is normally what you use. Create a 2/1 white cat warrior creature token. When you do, if you control a red permanent other than Ajani, he deals damage equal to the number of creatures you control to any target, which is great burn spell, great removal spell, frankly on a stick, which is ridiculous. And his -4 is each opponent chooses an artifact, a creature, an enchantment, and a planeswalker from among the non-land permanents they control, then sacrifice the rest. This is very good against decks that are going very, very wide against you, and you just need to catch up, and we're just kind of staring at each other. Now, I'm going to skip over Thraben Charm for just a second to talk about the big combo with Ajani. So obviously you can kill your own creature with like Galvanic Discharge, but the best way to go about it is Goblin Bombardment. Goblin Bombardment is a 2-mana enchantment. Sacrifice a creature. This enchantment deals 1 damage to any target. So if we have a Goblin Bombardment on the battlefield and cast an Ajani, we can sacrifice the 2/1 that is made to Goblin Bombardment, deal a damage to something, flip Ajani, and then 0 Ajani, and Goblin Bombardment's a red permanent. So it also means we deal damage with the 0 Ajani, all with the same card. So those are like direct combos with each other. There's also like some other combos with Goblin Bombardment by going really, really wide with Ocelot Pride, or like sacking the Flage after we cast it before it gets sacked to its first ability or whatever and stuff. So there's like other reasons to play Goblin Bombardment, but that's like the big, big thing. Speaking of, we're playing 2 Thraben Charm. It's a 2-mana instant. Choose 1. Thraben Charm deals damage equal to twice the number of creatures you control the target creature. 2, destroy target enchantment, or 3, exile any number of target players' graveyards. We're normally going wide, so often this is just like a removal spell. Enchantments are very powerful in Modern at the moment, especially answering other Goblin Bombardments and stuff. And exiling graveyards is also powerful against certain decks. Just decent main deck card that covers a lot of different bases. We're playing 4 Fable the Mirror Breakers. It's a 3-mana saga. Its first chapter is create a 2/2 red goblin shaman creature token with whenever this token attacks, create a treasure token. Second chapter, you may discard up to 2 cards when you do draw that many cards. And third chapter, exile the saga, then return to the battlefield transformed under your control. It flips into Reflection of Kikijiki, which is a 2/2 with pay 1 mana and tap it to create a token that's a copy of another target non-legendary creature you control, except it has haste. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. So this is 2 creatures in 1, effectively. Mana ramp in the goblin, card selection in the second chapter, and the flipped reflection can really just end the game by getting like multiple Ocelot Pride or multiple Guide of Souls, or having Season Pyromancer be targeted over and over so you'd keep drawing an insane amount of cards. It's effective. The flipped is effectively a must answer, and its first 2 chapters are also very good as well. We're playing 3 Season Pyromancer. Season Pyromancer is a 3-mana 2/2. When this creature enters, discard 2 cards, then draw 2 cards. For each non-land card discarded this way, create a 1/1 red elemental creature token. And you can pay 5 mana and exile this card from the graveyard to create 2 1/1 red elemental creature tokens. So what's cool about this card is we can discard things we don't want, draw 2 cards. Awesome. Also, once it gets killed, being able to like cash in on our mana by creating elementals with it from the graveyard also feels really good. But also what's very relevant about this is we normally want this to be the last card that we cast, because it's not a part of the payment of the ability to discard the cards. So if we have no cards in hand and cast Season Pyromancer, we just draw 2 cards, which is great. And so with this main deck, we have a really aggressive start. You know, we apply a lot of pressure with Ragavan, Ocelot Pride, and Guide of Souls. They answer that, and we have combos with a Johnny and Goblin Bombardment. We have crazy card advantage with Fable the Mirror Breaker and Season Pyromancer, and an unbeatable endgame in Flage, Titan of Fire's Fury. It's just a very, very solid deck. Now, as far as the sideboard goes, we're playing Deafening Silence for these combo decks. Each player can't cast more than 1 non-creature spell each turn. We can just cast it and forget it, which is really nice. We're playing 2 Orm's Chant, again, for combo decks. Also really reasonable against decks that are trying to, like, attack all in one turn. For example, like Amulet Titan or something. We can kick it because we can pay 1 mana to have target player can't cast spells this turn, or kick it to have creatures can't attack this turn as well. Celestial Purge is a 2-mana instant, exile target black or red permanent. Very good in the mirror, but generally just like a catch-all for black and red decks. We're playing a March of Otherworldly Light. It's a X and white. As an additional cost to cast a spell, you may exile any number of white cards from your hand. The spell costs 2 less to cast for each card exiled this way. And when exile target artifact, creature, or enchantment with mana value X or less. Another very, very good catch-all removal spell. Playing Wrath of the Skies is 2 white and X. Sorcery, you get X energy. Then you pay any amount of energy. Destroy each artifact, creature, and enchantment with mana value less than or equal to the amount of energy paid this way. So really good board wipe, really good way to catch up. Playing a Blood Moon, 3-mana enchantment. Non-basic lands are mountains. Very good against decks that are attempting to do silly things with their lands. We're playing 4 Molten Rain. Molten Rain is a 3-mana sorcery. Destroy target land. If that land is non-basic, Molten Rain deals 2 damage to that land's controller. A good way to stay aggressive against these like Eldrazi and Amulet decks while also attacking their primary game plan. Playing a Wear Tear. Wear is destroy target artifact. Tear is 1 mana destroy target enchantment, and you can fuse them together. Another very good catch-all sideboard card for artifacts and or enchantments. And we're playing 2 Showdown of the Skulls, which is a 4-mana saga. Its first chapter is exile the top 4 cards of your library. Until end of your next turn, you may play those cards. Its second chapter is whenever you cast a spell this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. And its third chapter is the same thing. This is kind of Fable the Mirror Breaker 5 and 6, because it's meant to be cast and then catch way up. So it's for the decks that are going to go very long against us, and we're able to play the long game with. So this Boros Energy, as far as the sideboard goes, Orm's Chant breaks up combo decks mostly. Celestial Purge, exiling black or red permanents, good against black or red stuff. Stony Silence, good against artifacts, mostly like Belcher and Affinity stuff. Wrath of the Sky is really good against small creatures, as well as like small enchantments, Urza Saga, stuff like that. Blood Moon, good against decks that focus on ramping their mana. Same thing with Molten Rain. Wear Tear is just decent artifact enchantment hate, and Showdown of the Skalds is the card that we side in against decks that are going very, very, very long against us. So the most popular deck in Modern is the Mirror Matches, Boros Energy. Against this deck, we're bringing in Wrath of the Skies in case we fall behind. We can kind of wipe the board and catch up, and Showdown of the Skalds because we match up pretty well against each other, and so the game is probably going to go pretty long. Also a reasonable fan of Celestial Purge, mostly because Goblin Bombardment is just absolutely disgusting in the mirror match. That being said, I think Ragavan's pretty bad, especially in the face of like Ocelot's Pride and like, you know, Goblin Bombardment, you know, and stuff like that. And I'm really not the biggest fan in the world of Galvanic Discharge, just because like a lot of stuff you don't need to kill the turn it comes out, and Static Prison needs to stay in the deck because of like Goblin Bombardment and stuff. So that's how I'm going to sideboard in the mirror. The second most popular deck is Dimir Murktide. Against Murktide, Celestial Purge is I actually like quite a bit because if they connect with Frog more than once, then it's an issue. And so stopping that connection's a big deal. Also can hit Kaido if they're playing that. That's really it. I don't really want anything else against this deck. We're already pretty mainboarded against the deck. And Goblin Bombardment's like only fine, so I'm just gonna shave a Goblin Bombardment. That's why I'm a sideboard against Dimir midrange. Or Dimir Oculus, or Frog, or whatever you want to call it. The third most popular deck is Eldrazi Ramp. Against this deck, Blood Moon is pretty good. Not end-all be-all like Blood Moon is against a lot of decks, but it's pretty good. Molten Rain to destroy their lands and slow them down. I like Wear Tear because it hits Utopia Sprawl and Talisman, and just attacking their mana is kind of how you win this matchup. We're siding out a lot of like the targeted removal. Thraben Charm can hit Utopia Sprawl in game one, but it's kind of meh, honestly. I'm bringing in a lot of 3-mana cards as well, so we're just going to shave on the top end. Fable's a little bit slower than Seasoned Pyromancer, so it's on my sideboard. Against Eldrazi Ramp. The fourth most popular deck in Modern is Amulet Titan. Against Amulet Titan, I like Orm's Champ, because when they combo, you can actually stop them from attacking for 2 mana, which is kind of cool. Blood Moon's nice, because they run mostly non-basics that produce 2 mana. There's also an Urza Saga deck, which is kind of cool. Molten Rain, similarly, being able to take out a land that produces 2 mana feels super, super good. And we're a fan of Wear Tear, just being able to take out those amulets and also being able to snipe an Urza Saga is pretty cool too. Goblin Bombardment really does, frankly, nothing. Same thing with Thraben Charm, and I really don't like Galvanic Discharge either. So I'm a sideboard against Amulet Titan. The fifth most popular deck is Domain Zoo. Against Domain Zoo, I like Celestial Purge. Hits Ragavan, which they probably side out to be fair. Terrato, Kavu, and Flage, as well as Leyline of the Guild Pack, which is pretty relevant if you're on the play, being able to take that out before they can Scion you. I'm a fan of Wear Tear, again, because Leyline, and also it hits Scion too. There's an argument for Wrath of the Skies, but I don't think it's a good argument at all. But I do like Blood Moon, because they don't run a lot of basics. 5-color deck, you know, can shut a lot of things down. That being said, I do not think Goblin Bombardment's very good against this deck. And Fable can be kind of slow, so that's how I'm a sideboard against Domain Zoo. The sixth most popular deck in Modern is Belcher. Against Belcher, we're in love with Stony Silence. It's just another thing they have to answer in order to get a Belcher activation. Molten Rain is excellent, being able to attack their lands, running non-basics, and same thing with Blood Moon. It means they just can't cast anything except for exclusively Goblin Tri Belcher, because it's sort of an oops all spells deck. That being said, we're going to take out most of our removal. I like keeping in some number of Static Prison because they do have like Tameshi and things like that. And if they like pass the turn with like a Lotus Bloom because they don't have anything or whatever, being able to just like Static Prison the Lotus Bloom is really silly. So just shave a Goblin Bombardment, and this is how I sideboard against Belcher. The seventh most popular deck is Black White Blink, or Zav Midrange, whatever you want to call it. Celestial Purge is excellent, as well as Showdown of the Skalds, because the game is probably going to go pretty long and we need to kind of catch up with them. There's an argument for Wear Tear for like Relic and Overlord. I just don't think it's a good argument, so we're just going to leave that. And I just really don't think Ragavan is very good in this matchup, so I'm just going to shave Ragavan, and that's how I sideboard against Black White Midrange. The eighth most popular deck is Ruby Storm. Against Ruby Storm, we're bringing in this Orm's Chant. We can let them combo and then can kind of stop them, which is really nice. Wear Tear, because it's all about making sure they do not have that Ruby or Ral. That being said, we just need to kill as fast as possible. And so these cards that give us these like card advantage and mana advantage and stuff like that is just not worth it. So that's how I'm a sideboard against Ruby Storm. The ninth most popular deck is Blue-White Control. Against blue-white control, we are bringing a showdown on the Scolds, and that's pretty much it. We just need to have our deck do the thing. Shave in some Galvanic Discharge, because they don't really run many creatures, so really Galvanic Discharge just hits their Planeswalkers, and that's it. And then against Affinity, we love Wrath of the Skies, just takes out their entire deck. Stony Silence means they can't activate, all their really cool artifacts. Wear Tear, obvious artifact hate. I actually like Blood Moon as well, because it turns off their colors if they don't have their single island. And it hits Urza Saga, which is really nice. I am not a big fan of Ragavan against this deck. Thraben Charm is also a pretty medium removal spell. And we're just going to shave a Seasoned Pyromancer. Just because we're not trying to go fast, but we do need some number of those 3-mana cards in to keep that card advantage. So this on my sideboard against Affinity. So if you play Boros Energy in Modern at all, you're pretty much locked into these 54 cards in the main deck and these 5 cards in the sideboard. But that's not what this video is about. We're going to be talking about what 6 cards then do you play in the main deck in those flex slots, and what 10 cards then do you play in the sideboard in those flex slots. Well, these are pretty much your options. So we're going to go over them. So you got to select 6 of these 10 cards for the main deck. You can play the third Static Prism. Static Prism is a 1-mana enchantment. When it enters, exile target non-land permanent opponent controls. Until this enchantment leaves the battlefield, you get 2 energy. And at the beginning of your first main phase, sacrifice this enchantment unless you pay 1 energy. This is really good because it's kind of a catch-all. It's very, very cheap, so it's really easy to work into your mana curve. The issue is it's really hard to play a lot because the deck sometimes doesn't kill very fast. So if you use a Static Prism really early, it is eventually going to come out from underneath Static Prism, and because we don't have enough energy, and that is an issue. So playing a few and then using them selectively is kind of where this deck is tending towards, but you could totally play the third one. You can play the third Thraben Charm. Thraben Charm is a 2-mana instant where you choose one. Thraben Charm deals damage equal to twice the number of creatures you control the target creature, or destroy target enchantment, or exile any number of target players' graveyards. So this is one of those cards that we play as a 2 of in our main deck because it's a little bit of a catch-all card. It's almost never bad. Exiling graveyards as having main deck graveyard hate, excellent, right? Having main deck enchantment hate, excellent, especially non-Static Prism and enchantment hate. And it can just kill a creature to make so you can attack very easily. So you could be playing another Thraben Charm. Playing a main deck Blood Moon. Blood Moon, 3-mana enchantment. Non-basic lands are mountains. This is very good against those decks that focus on their lands or are really greedy with their mana base. Things like the Eldrazi Ramp deck, Amulet Titan are the 2 that pop into my head immediately. And it's fine against a lot of decks if they don't expect it as well. Sometimes you just get to play a Blood Moon and then you win the game. It's not close. So you can play one of those in the main deck. You can play up to 4 Fable of the Mirror Breaker. Fable of the Mirror Breaker is a 3-mana saga. Its first chapter is create a 2/2 red goblin shaman creature token with whenever this token attacks, create a treasure token. Its second chapter, you may discard up to 2 cards if you do draw that many cards. And third chapter is exile this saga and return it to the battlefield transformed under your control. And it transforms into Reflection of Kiki-Jiki, which is a 2/2. With 1 mana and tap it, create a token that's a copy of another target non-legendary creature you control, except it has haste. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. So since the One Ring was banned, Fable of Mirror Breaker, alongside Seasoned Pyromancer, and before Breach was banned, Rager, Captain of Eos, existed in some capacity, normally 6 or 7 between them, to replace the card advantage that the deck got from the One Ring. So up to 4 Fable and Mirror Breakers can fill that slot. Fable is really, really good because it's a threat. It is ramp if you ever get to attack with the goblin. It's card selection, which sometimes some cards it's an aggro deck. Sometimes some cards in the deck just aren't very good, or you draw too many lands or whatever. Also, it fuels Flage. And then it flips into a must answer because if you're able to do copying Guide of Souls or Ocelot Prides with Reflection of Kiki-Jiki, or multiple reflections of Kiki-Jiki, it is just absolutely disgusting. So that's an option. You can also play Seasoned Pyromancer, number 3 and 4. It's a 3-mana 2/2. When this creature enters, discard 2 cards, then draw 2 cards. For each non-land card discarded this way, create a 1/1 red elemental creature token. And then you can pay 5 mana and exile this card from your graveyard to create 2 1/1 red elemental creature tokens. So Seasoned Pyromancer, There are two that are very, very stock, but you could totally play Seasoned Pyromancer 3 and 4, especially if you think Seasoned Pyromancer is a little bit better than Fable in whatever tuning that you're attempting to do. But it fills a similar role as Fable. It lets us get our card selection / advantage and applies a threat. And you can play up to 1 March of Otherworldly Light. It is a 1 white and X instant. As an additional cost to cast a spell, you may exile any other number of white spells from your hand. The spell costs 2 less to cast for each card exiled this way, and we exile target artifact, creature, or enchantment with mana value X or less. So this is a decent catch-all card. It's a removal spell. It makes it so you can answer artifacts, which Thraben Charm does not do notably, and makes you exile. It has you exile enchantments. So you're going to be selecting 6 of these 10 cards to play in the main deck. And as far as the sideboard goes, you're going to be selecting 10 of these 23 cards. You could play up to 3 Deafening Silence. Deafening Silence is a 1 mana enchantment. Each player can't cast more than 1 non-creature spell each turn. This is really good. Hate to like Storm or other combo decks that want to cast multiple non-creature spells. You can play up to 2 Orm's Chant. Orm's Chant's a 1 mana instant with Kicker for 1 white. Target player can't cast spells this turn. If this spell was kicked, creatures can attack this turn. It's very good against those combo decks that are either trying to kill in one massive attack, like Amulet Titan, or decks that are attempting to combo you, like again, like Ruby Storm or something like that. You play up to 1 Celestial Purge, or another Celestial Purge, excuse me, as a 2 mana instant, exile target black or red permanent. Very good catch-all removal spell. Deals with Flage, deals with Fable the Mirror Breaker, the red stuff. It's just very, very, very good, and exile removal is super important. You can play another Wrath of the Skies, so 2 white and X sorcery. You get X energy, and then you can pay any amount of energy, destroy each artifact, creature, and enchantment with mana value less than or equal to the amount of energy paid this way. A restart button is really nice. And Wrath of the Sky is also really good against Mox Opal decks that have started popping up. And if you fall behind in the mirror match or against other aggro decks, Wrath of the Sky is really powerful, especially if you're ready to transition into the Flage end game and your opponent is not. You play up to 2 Surgical Extraction. It is a Phyrexian black instant to choose target card in a graveyard other than a basic land card. Search the owner's graveyard, hand, and library for any number of cards with the same name as that card and exile them. Then that player shuffles. So Surgical Extraction is great. 0 mana graveyard hate, also being able to extract really important cards for matchups, so like again, like Flage in the mirror match or something like that, or just be able to have targeted graveyard hate. It's very, very good and can really surprise people. You can play up to 3 Blood Moon in the sideboard. Blood Moon, we've already talked about why Blood Moon is good, because it only targets some decks directly. Playing more in the sideboard is pretty smart. You play for 2 more Molten Rain. Molten Rain is a 3 mana sorcery. Destroy target land if that land was non-basic. Molten Rain deals 2 damage to that land's controller. Very good against similar decks that Blood Moon's good against, where you either have to take out important lands or the lands produce more than 1 mana, again, like Eldrazi Ramp and Amulet Titan. In a similar vein, you could be playing up to 4 Obsidian Charmon. Obsidian Charmon is a 5 mana 4/4. The spell costs 1 less for each land card your opponent controls that can produce colorless. Has flying, and when this creature enters, destroy target non-basic land an opponent controls. So this card is way better if you feel like you need a threat, like an additional threat behind your land destruction thing, but it's worse than Molten Rain in the sense that it needs your opponent to be playing a lot of colorless lands, and frankly, even against Eldrazi Ramp, they aren't playing a ton of colorless lands. You could be playing up to 1 Wear Tear, where destroy target artifact, tear, destroy target enchantment, and they confuse. It's one of those split cards. This is great artifact enchantment hate, and it's pretty premium being instant speed and so cheap. You can play up to 2 Showdown of the Scalds. Showdown of the Scalds is a 4 mana saga. Its first chapter, exile the top 4 cards of your library until the end of your next turn. You may play those cards. And second and third chapter are both whenever you cast a spell this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. So this is a pretty beautiful card against decks that you expect to go very, very long against. So either control decks or the mirror match, because of all the removal spells end up being like that. Because you essentially get to draw 4 cards off of 1 card, even if it's a little expensive, and then use those cards to apply on an insane amount of pressure in chapter 2 and 3. And then lastly, we could play up to 2 Ghost Vacuum just as awesome graveyard hate. It's a 1-mana artifact. Exile target card from a graveyard. And you can pay 6 mana and tap it, sacrifice this artifact, put each creature card exiled with this artifact onto the battlefield under your control with a flying counter on it. Each of them is a 1/1 spirit in addition to other types. Activate only as a sorcery. So this is just great graveyard hate that you get to pay 1 mana for and let it sit. And it has an awesome end game. Like if you exile a bunch of stuff with really good end of the battlefield effects, it doesn't matter that they're a 1/1 spirit. So you being able to pay 6 mana and tap it, and you get all of these things and all these end of the battlefield effects. So having an end game with your 1 mana graveyard hate is pretty cool. So you're going to be selecting 10 of these 23 cards for your main deck, and 6 of these 10 cards for your main deck. I think I said main deck before I meant sideboard. And then you have your very own but stock version of Boros Energy in Modern. First off is Ocelot Pride is obviously great, but if you play it while you already have a Guide of Souls on the battlefield, you get to trigger Ocelot Pride at that end step that you play it because you gained life from Ocelot Pride itself entering the battlefield with Guide of Souls. So sequencing the creatures that you play are pretty important. In addition, if the board is really gummed up, you can just play a Flage, have it lightning helix something, and then all of a sudden you've gained life and you get to trigger Ocelot Pride in your end step, even though you're unable to attack and unable to do that cool guide thing. Still speaking about Ocelot Pride reads at the beginning of your end step, if you gained life this turn, create a 1/1 white cat creature token. Then if you have the city's blessing, for each token you control that enter this turn, create a token that's a copy of it, which that counts for every single token, not just the Ocelot Pride token. That counts for the Treasures from Regavan, the Ajani token, the Fable the Mirror Breaker token, the Season Pyromancer elementals, all of that stuff. If you have the City's Blessing, you get to double those tokens if they enter the battlefield during your turn. We have a lot of cards that allow us to have card selection by discarding cards like Fable the Mirror Breaker and Season Pyromancer. And that's extra powerful beyond having card selection because it speeds up being able to escape Flage. And escaping Flage is this deck's, or one of this deck's end games. And sometimes we can do that as early as turn 4 with Season Pyromancer and Fable the Mirror Breaker. Next up, if we have an Ajani Cattle Pariah out, it allows us to attack and block really liberally with our cats, because if your opponent blocks either, you know, one of the 1/1 cats from Ocelot Pride or one of the 2/1 cats from Ajani, then Ajani gets to flip into a very, very powerful planeswalker. So you need to be really careful if you're liberally attacking or blocking with cats, especially if they're like chump blocks or chump attacks, because they can just kill Ajani in response to the trigger and then you're out multiple cards for one of your opponent's cards. But it's still really relevant that it allows you to like dictate the flow of the game in that way. And speaking about Ajani, Goblin Bombardment is absolutely absurd with Ajani. Obviously, it's great if we have like a ton of tokens from Ocelot Pride, we can just fling them all at our opponent. But Goblin Bombardment plus Ajani allows us to not only be a sacrifice outlet for Ajani, because we can sacrifice a cat to deal that 1 damage and flip Ajani, but also it's a red permanent so that we deal damage off of Ajani's 0, which is so powerful. And then the last kind of relevant thing that I wanted to talk about is you don't need to pay energy with Galvanic Discharge. You can just have the 3 energy. So if you need to deal that little extra damage to your opponent and you have a Guide of Souls and you want to jump one of your creatures with Guide of Souls to deal that 2 extra damage, you can just Galvanic Discharge, pay 0 energy, get that 3 energy rather than deal damage, and then just like have that 3 energy. In addition, if you Galvanic Discharge something and your opponent like pumps up the creature, you don't have to spend energy on it. You can just say, okay, pay 0 energy then. If you like this video, please be sure to like and subscribe. Check me out on social medias. Links are above me and in the description. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.